LOL take two. LOL take two. LOL take two. Now listen. Do 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 do. I would bet that pretty much anybody on earth hears those notes and knows it's the song Summer Nights. Grease was a cultural phenomenon that summer. Everybody had the album, and because it wasn't rated R like Saturday Night Fever, which was a huge hit the summer before, even the kids could see it, and we loved it. My 9-year-old cousin Rachel had a Grease parade that summer, and of course, because she was blonde and it was her parade, she played Sandy. I always thought it was funny that all the actors playing the high school kids in it were mid-20s and older. Much older. I mean, Stockard Channing, who played Rizzo, was like 40. I was 15 that summer and was just starting to come out of the dark ages of puberty. Summer Nights isn't the only song to bring back the magic of summers past. Summer of Love by the B-52s, Cruel Summer by Bananarama, and The Boys of Summer by Don Henley were all in heavy rotation during certain life-changing summers. And it seems like summer has been my season for life transitions, and I mean big life transitions. The summer after I graduated from Urbandale High School, I knew I would finally be escaping Iowa and heading to Minneapolis for college in the fall. Days that summer were spent running around with my friends, Tony, Janet, and TJ, knowing things would never be the same again. We slathered our bodies in baby oil, and fried them in the sun by Saylorville Lake. We were like over-easy eggs in a Grand Slam breakfast at Denny's. I imagine my dermatologist is especially grateful for that summer, since I'm sure it has paid for at least one addition to her Beverly Hills home. I spent those summer nights of 1981 playing Fiedka, the very tan and glamorous Russian soldier, in a production of the musical Fiddler on the Roof at Charlie's Showplace, our local dinner theater. Fiddler is like most musicals and has 2 acts with 1 intermission. Our producers, however, turned it into 3 acts so they could have 2 intermissions. This gave the owner, Larry, 2 chances to walk around the audience hawking the ice cream drink, a pink squirrel. How that drink tied into a bunch of Russian Jewish peasants was beyond me. And really, couldn't they have been a little creative and renamed the drink to tie in with the show, like a Sunrise Sunset Squirrel or Pink Perchik or even a Mazel Tov cocktail? The summer of 1983, I was determined to stay in Minneapolis. I made a deal with my parents. I would get a part-time job, attend summer school, knocking off 2 semesters of required Spanish courses, in exchange for their financial support to stay in my dorm room that summer. The Spanish classes were on an accelerated summer schedule and went from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m., 5 days a week. That was 15 hours a week of Spanish class. But with that many hours, you could complete a whole semester in just 4 weeks. By the end of the summer, I would have my language elective satisfied, be speaking fluent Espanol, but best of all, I would finally be on my own and not have to return to Iowa. Ever. I had moved on. Perfect. Now for the part-time job. The only job I could find was as a switchboard operator at the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Minneapolis. The graveyard shift. It was an old-fashioned switchboard, like the kind Lily Tomlin used as her Ernestine character. Gracious hello. I worked from 10 at night to 6 in the morning, 5 nights a week. Thankfully, the graveyard shift wasn't that busy, and sometimes I was able to put my head down and get some sleep, only to be awakened by the buzzing switchboard. At the end of my shift in the early morning hours, I'd have to start making wake-up calls. I had to wake up Gloria Steinem one time. Her phone rang and rang and rang. Finally, she picked up. "Good morning, this is your wake-up call." What? When I got off work at 6 a.m., I'd ride my bike back to my dorm on campus, catch an hour's sleep, then go attend my Spanish class. Many afternoons, I would bike over to Lake of the Isles and meet my friends, slathering our bodies in more baby oil to bake in the sun. That summer, no doubt, has paid for at least one of my dermatologist's kids' college tuitions. My boss at the Sheraton was a tall, really attractive guy who had the hots for me, and I went out with him a couple times for drinks. This was also the summer where I learned that you don't sleep with people you work with, especially your supervisor. Awkward. He was a really nice guy and invited me out to other events, but it just wasn't happening for me. I was 21 years old and had a lot of other fish to fry. Suffice it to say that between the 5 nights of graveyard shift, sunning at the lake by day, and cocktailing all over Minneapolis by night, well, something was bound to give. And yes, I got a D in the first Spanish class and flunked the second one. The only Spanish I ended up learning were the malas palabras, the bad words. Finally, autumn arrived and a new school year started. I was able to dump the graveyard shift and, unfortunately, my boss, which I still feel bad about. I had accomplished most of what I set out to do that summer, and then some, even though it meant I had wasted my folks' money and had broken somebody's heart in the process. Like the song, it had been a bit of a cruel summer indeed, especially for my boss. In 1986, I had another huge transitional summer as I was leaving Minneapolis and heading to California. Fortunately, I booked a season of paid acting work and spent that summer in a little town called Mankato. The insecurities and angst of such a huge move were dulled by performing in 4 fantastic plays and musicals, which were dream parts for me. I had to work my butt off learning a new part during the day while performing the previous show at night. I also got to work with some of my best friends from the U who had also been hired. It was truly heaven. That would have been a busy enough summer, but I also had a fantastic summer affair with one of my co-stars. He was involved with somebody else long distance at the time, but oh no, that didn't stop us. It was a great summer filled with theater, wild emotion, and in the end, tears of saying goodbye and frankly, being terrified of what was ahead. The song, The Summer of Love, was on my playlist, and yes, it was my turn to have my heart broken that summer. But I had known what I was getting myself in for and dove in anyway. Turnaround is fair play. And with all that activity, I had no time to bake in the sun that summer. So there, Dr. Candell, you can pay for your own damn trip to Europe. 3 years later, another huge transition, and of course, during a summer. Bill and I took the leap after only 3 years together and purchased a house. A 61-year-old Spanish bungalow fixer priced at the top of the market. Bill was taking an enormous chance on me, and let's face it, it was a gigantic transition for me on so many levels, relationship-wise, commitment-wise, financial-wise. After seeing how neglected the property was, my parents weren't so sure about it either. The backyard looked like the set of Sanford and Son. There was a large poster of Richard Nixon that hung in the garage, and there were fleas in the living room carpeting from the elderly owner's dogs. I mean, they could have done a decade's worth of HGTV shows on our trying to get this dump in some semblance of shape. Shortly before the purchase closed, Bill and I went and saw Tyne Daly starring in a Broadway-bound production of Gypsy. Towards the end, Mama Rose has a mental breakdown singing the 11 o'clock number, Rose's Turn, asking herself, why did I do it? What did it get me? Yes, Tyne's performance was amazing. But suddenly everything hit me. The house, the enormous changes going on in my life, and let's face it, the prospect of all those trips to Home Depot in our future. The dam burst, and I just lost it. I rushed out to the Music Center Plaza after curtain calls. Bill didn't know what in the hell was going on with me and probably thought, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I stood there and just sobbed. A catharsis of emotion triggered by a musical. And that's showbiz, kids. I got it all out, and then I felt better. We bought the house that summer, immediately burning the Richard Nixon poster, and this summer we celebrated 30 years living in it. So I guess it worked out after all. My brother, who had lived in Des Moines for over 40 years, moved out of state a few years ago when he got married. He returned to Iowa this summer to attend his 30th high school reunion and told me that this trip back felt really different. He felt detached from the only place he had ever called home. I know just how he felt. I had that same experience when I returned to Iowa and even Minneapolis. My memories are so vivid, but when I go back, I realize that the place has moved on without me. And it's a little melancholy, I admit. The song The Boys of Summer kind of sums it up. A little voice inside my head said, don't look back, you can never look back. But you do. I do. There have been other transitional summers, but those were a few of my biggies. I love this quote by Henry David Thoreau. Live in each season as it passes. Breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign yourself to the influence of each. It's a Saturday in August, and the sun is setting late in the day. Thankfully, my backyard no longer looks like the setting for the musical Cats. It's full of green and flowers and herbs and, well, life. The hot California sun is going behind the big tree they planted a decade ago, which now shades my patio. I plug in my party lights. The birds are calling it a day as the sky turns from shades of Maxfield Parish blue to orange and coral. My white boxer, Roxy, curls up on the chaise lounge she has claimed as her own. Bill joins me. I take a sip of my delicious lime juice tequila concoction that has lots of vitamin C, so it's actually good for you. God knows moving on hasn't always been easy, but I've never regretted any of it. Life is good, and I turn on my summer tunes. Summer dreams ripped at the seams, but oh, those summer nights. LOL take two. LOL take two. LOL take two. Ba 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 bum.